So a couple years ago, I did a video on how I wax my Shopsmith machine using Johnson's paste wax. If you didn't know this, Shopsmith equipment has a lot of sliding metal on metal parts, and those parts are lubricated using paste wax. There are other lubricants that you might use. You think of greases or even other waxes like automotive paste wax that will only cause problems down the road. Your grease will attract dust. Your automotive wax oftentimes contains silicone, which will possibly even transfer over to your wood, affecting the quality of your finish. Okay, so we talked about using paste wax, the technique that I use. Problem is, Johnson's has discontinued this stuff. And so since that time, quite a number of people have asked, well, what do I use? Just so you know, I'm experimenting with something new, something that is not a paste wax at all, but I don't have enough confidence in it yet to recommend it to you. So in the meantime, what I would suggest that you do is to pick up a quality furniture paste wax. In this case, I picked up some tree wax. There's several other brands. The most important thing to look for on the label or on the instructions if you're buying it online, or the description is it should say Carnauba. Carnauba is a very hard, apparently expensive natural wax. It is hard wearing, so your parts sliding around are not going to wear it off so easily. And I guess it's expensive enough that if they bother putting it into the wax, they're going to mention it. So right on the label here, it says clear paste wax with natural Carnauba wax. That was always the go-to with Johnson's paste wax because I knew that it was long wearing in part because of the Carnauba. How much paste wax is in these? I have no idea. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to wax this machine using the tree wax. But again, just understand that while you're not looking, I'm going to be removing this and removing every trace of wax that I can get to. And I'm trying something new. I'll report back, like I said, in a few months on that. So let's take this all apart and we'll go over one more time how I would spread this wax and where. So there are a few tricks, and I wouldn't say that they're secrets, but if you don't know them, they're helpful to know. The first one is I'm going to slide everything off to one end or the other, the headstock and the carriage, and I'm only going to work on this portion that is exposed. I'm going to let it dry, I'm going to buff it, and then I'm going to slide everything back over. Can't begin to tell you the number of machines that I've worked on where people have put wax on, and while the wax is wet, they'll slide everything across, and then they'll apply the wax over here, and then they'll come back over here and they'll buff it and so on. Every time you slide this, what you're doing is you're removing some wax, but that wax is building up inside of these castings. Now, you can take these castings off and clean them up, and in fact, that is what I'm going to have to do here in a few minutes. But you don't want to have to do that any more than you have to. So I'm going to put the wax on, I'm going to let it dry, I'm going to buff it, and then I'll slide everything over. Now, how to apply this wax is another little secret. Normally, I would use something like a cotton t-shirt material. This is a, what do they call this? It's a paper towel of sorts, but it doesn't have lint, and it's more like a fabric. We use these now. We've been using these for several years exclusively in our house because we got 9 grandkids now. And what I'm going to do, and wow, this stuff is really solid, is I'm kind of using my fingernails through this fabric to dig up a little bit of this wax. And I want to transfer some of that here to the cloth. And maybe I have too many folds here. We'll find out in just a moment. But you're going to take that and you're going to knead it inside of the fabric. And what that's going to do is that's going to cause it to warm up and melt a bit. And it will begin then to pass through the fabric. And like I said, maybe I have one too many folds here. Let me eliminate half of this paper towel, and we'll continue to fold this through. Knead it. All right, it's starting to feel a little bit wet here. So now I can go ahead and I can apply this. So I'm applying it through the rag. I'm not applying that wax directly onto the tube. So as a result, I'm getting just a very thin, almost liquid layer of wax here, so that in a little bit, when it's dry and I go to buff it, I don't have chunks of wax to buff out. Now, one of the kind of phenomenon that you might experience is you might think that, well, I'm going to put 20 coats of wax on. Well, you can't put 20 coats of wax on because the solvents in this wax are dissolving the wax that's there. But what you can do is you can get a more complete, more thorough coating of wax. So it doesn't hurt to put multiple applications. Just keep in mind you're not getting multiple layers. While we're here, I'm going to go ahead and wax down inside of these castings here. This is where the table, extension table tubes are going to slide in. I'm going to wax down here where the main table passes inside the carriage. Again, it's a rather long tube, so you can come up from the bottom of that. You can see it's actually even removing some gunk while we're in there. I'm going to do it here on the ends of the machine. And while I'm waiting for this wax to cure, we go ahead and move my main table back up onto the machine. I'm just going to lay it down here. And yes, I'm switching back to my 520 fence system. I have had my 510 fence system on here, table and fence system. And we're going to apply the wax here on these posts. And I can tell there's a bit of oxidization here as well. So it probably wouldn't hurt for us to really strip this off and clean it, get a Scotch-Brite pad on there and get this nice and buffed up. I'm going to do that, but that's, again, part of my next project. And then, again, while we're at it, we would do the tubes on the extension table.
20 minutes later.
So depending upon the temperature in your shop, time passes, let's talk 20 minutes at least. We want all those solvents to evaporate out. We want the wax to have an opportunity to solidify a bit. We're then going to go back with a clean rag and we're going to buff. And we're just removing whatever we can remove. What we can't remove, we don't want to remove. And we're going to take that again, go down inside of these tubes here on the casting. Yeah, you can put this around a stick if you like, if you're concerned about harming yourself. If you've got a burr there that you're catching things on, including your fingers, just remove the burr. Get in there with a rat tail file and get rid of that burr, and then it's nothing to fear. You know, while we're here, we probably could have gone ahead and applied wax to the quill. In the same manner, I'm going to extend the quill out. I'm going to remove my depth stop so I can go all the way out. We're going to lock the quill out and apply paste wax. I am not going to drive this in and out while that wax is laying on the surface in its liquid form, in its heavy form. And just apply that wax. You can apply this anywhere you like if you're worried about corrosion in your shop, if you got a lot of humidity. It doesn't hurt even to wax the painted surfaces here. The dust will wipe off a little easier. It's completely optional, but it can make your shop look a little nicer if you do. So now we'll slide the headstock and the carriage down to the other end, and we will continue applying the wax through the rag onto the tubes.
20 minutes later.
All right. Go ahead and buff that off. No reason to get too aggressive here. You don't need to use a Scotch-Brite cloth or anything like that. Nice. Get it off of the quill as well. And then let's check that out. If I just loosen the quill here, quill lock, ooh, it got me. Headstock itself is sliding easily. Carriage, relatively smooth. I just noticed here I've got a few dingles in my way tubes where someone has over tightened this at one point. Let's get our table back up here. And we'll check it out. Nice and smooth. And we can also apply wax to the main table in the same manner, applying it through the rag. Depending upon what table system you have, will determine where you can and should not apply wax on your fence rails. We're clamping down and applying sideways pressure in some of the drilling and sanding operations, and we wouldn't want that fence to slip on us. But there are some surfaces that never get any clamping action against them that might oxidize otherwise. So just study how the clamps are clamping, and you can determine from your fence exactly what surfaces are safe to wax. We can, again, apply the same wax to the miter bar. And in this case, because that's just a black oxide finish on that, if you want to prevent rust, go ahead and wax it even on areas where it's never going to wear. That'll help to keep it from rusting. So I have no evidence that Johnson's paste wax is superior in any way to tree wax. What I do know is years ago I adopted the Johnson's paste wax approach, and it's never failed me. But this is readily available. You can pick this up at your home center. I'm sure Amazon's got it. I'll link to it if I can find a link. Nothing to fear. I think I paid about $16 for this can at a retail store. I was a little surprised by that. These do contain petroleum product, and so that's probably contributing to that. But give it a try. Let me know what you think, and make it a great day. So it's been a couple years since we talked about my use of Johnson's paste wax and how to thoroughly wax your Shopsmith equipment. So it's been a couple years since I filmed a video for you on how I wax my Shopsmith equipment with Johnson's paste wax. There have been a number of changes, not the least of which Johnson's paste wax has been discontinued. I've received a lot of people asking. So I've received, golly,